Good morning, buenos días, es un placer. I'd like to do it in Spanish, but that might... Listen, I want to talk to you first and foremost a little bit about the underlying business case for Univision. Secondly, a little bit about the performance model, particularly as we gear it around organization performance and leadership performance. And then I want to hone in a little bit on a particular tool that we have, which you guys probably have in your businesses, but we call it our CEO Leadership Review. That part of the presentation is pretty tactical, so you'll see the actual pages, formats, or tools that we use with our leaders, but I'll take you through it and explain kind of the underlying premise and what we're trying to get at. First of all, and I just realized in the back it's hard to see, but this is just kind of the underlying reason why Univision is where it is and is being as successful as it can be. 1 in 6 Americans are Hispanic. It's going to 1 in 3. It doubled in the last 10 or so years. It will double again by 2050. The Hispanic America economy is the 16th largest in the United States, the Hispanic American economy in the United States. The purchasing power of Hispanics will increase at double the rate of other Americans over the course of the next 10 years. It's also a much younger generation. Every 30 seconds, an Hispanic turns 18. 1 in 4 Americans under the age of 12 are Hispanic. And so what that means about us is a growing demography that is young, that consumes media in all the new multi-platform areas. In fact, Hispanics over-index in the use of cellular, online, games, broadband, and just about everything else. So it presents a particular opportunity for us. If you're in media these days, you look at 2 growth opportunities. One is demography, which is Hispanic, and the other is digital. So we're in a pretty good position to not only be loyal to our Spanish-speaking population and audience, but to also evolve and grow with the millennials and the newer parts of our population into English and into multi-platform. But that's the underlying case, and a very good one in terms of an opportunity. That opportunity has not escaped a whole host of competitors who have recently come in big. We used to have like 3 competitors. We now have about 50. And you'll see some of the big brands there, those that you can see it. Everybody from CNN to ESPN to ABC to NBC, they're all getting in because the opportunity is just too big an opportunity, both in terms of the demography and also in terms of its growth. Over the last 18 months, we've been very, very aggressive, and that's the bottom part of the page, in not only beginning to create new networks and channels to continually give our loyal Spanish-speaking viewers more program content and better program content, but also, again, to the emerging part of our population, to move into the multi-channel, multi-broadband, and other avenues of media consumption. So recently we had in English, we're emphasizing not just culture now, but also, not just English, Spanish language, but also culture. We've got a new joint venture which we'll launch called Fusion with ABC. Next year it'll be lifestyle and news, and it'll be in English, geared to the Hispanic culture. We're with Robert Rodriguez, who's done a series of movies. He's a tremendous producer, and also Spy Kids. And we're going to launch a channel with him. And all of our multi-platform media consumption is in Spanish and English. So we're trying to grow and make sure that wherever our population goes, as media fragmentation, media consumption fragments, and wherever they go, there's a Univision branded product there waiting for them. Key to the success that we've had, and we just recently beat all English-speaking broadcasters in the July sweeps. So we're number 1 regardless of language. Our operating performance last year was stellar, and this year is going to be even better. And the innovation that we're creating out of our company is terrific. So in this competitive, growing business opportunity, we're doing pretty well. Core to it is our operating system and the way we run the company. This is something we borrowed, many of us come from GE, from the GE system. And you'll see that right on over to the top, Organization Leadership Review, is this discipline that we have. That particular annual event that we use with the CEO and then colors the rest of everything else we do around people and organization throughout the year is as important as our annual financial and planning and budgeting, and as important as our long-range plan. So it's right in the middle of our operating system, and I think you'll see the evidence of that. This is kind of an operating model that we built, a performance model that we built around organization and leadership. And you'll see the basic tenets of it. I'll just highlight a few. Obviously, we try to link everything to the strategy, and you'll see whatever structure, initiatives, or processes are required for us to perform our strategy always have implications for the management of our people and the way we structure the work. And we're always looking at what are the implications of that, how do we structure, what kind of talent do we need, what kind of mix do we need. The second bullet there, update, reallocate resources routinely, is one that I believe leaders don't spend enough time on. So if you do kind of what I call the leadership math, and you have 47 people working for you in a budget of $31 million, the question is, how are you continuing to refresh your look at that to determine whether or not you are both, first of all, updated and contemporary, and secondly, employing the resources in the right mix at the right time and in the right structure. So we spend an awful lot of time. You'll see the results of that in a form that I'll show you we use with all our leaders. On the leadership side, another particular area where I think leaders tend to not spend enough time on, a very, very principal responsibility of theirs, is continuously thinking about putting the best team on the field. I think people get, they're convenient. They have their team. They try to get incremental performance out of it. I just don't think they reset enough to say, do I have the best team I could possibly have? And if I do not, then how can I develop the people that I have, or how can I bring in new players in a way that makes the performance of that team the best? But a fundamental responsibility of a leader at Univision is to put the best team they can on the field. It's a competitive environment, it's a growth-oriented business, and they have to perform on that one. I'll show you how we talk about that one. I mentioned the CEO Leadership Review, so I'm going to take you through some of the elements of it now and how it is that we conduct that review as we do our annual budgeting and financial planning, but also how it colors the rest of the year in terms of how we measure our managers in our organization. We always start the discussion with, what is the work to be done? If your business objectives are these, then how is it that you're going to structure and allocate your resources? So this is a page. A typical CEO review will be minimum 4 hours, and for our biggest business is about 8. So we're about at it all day. And we typically start with the business overview, which connects and updates the operating plan. And then we move on to structure and resources. So you can see a simple organization chart. We do care about layers, and we do care about span of control. We try to get as big a span of control as we think can be managed, just so a leader has enough people that he can't mess around with them all the time, and he really hires really good people. And then we try to eliminate redundant layers. We then go into the discussion about, tell us how you're resourced. What's your budget? How many people do you have? How are they structured? What locations are they at? And how are they aligned to your business objectives? A fundamental principle that we have is one that we call cut the tail off. So if we want to stay at a employment or a labor cost base, and we're growing like crazy, then self-funding is going to be very important, because we're going to have all kinds of opportunities. So we have a notion we call cut the tail off. Every leader is required to list cut the tail off kind of results or exercises they've gone through. And what that means is you go back and you look into your entire organization and places where you invested in the past that are not yielding you the results or the performance that they were intended to or no longer are. And you begin to look at how you build a kind of a surplus or an allocation of resources around that you can then apply to the new opportunities. So if we have to digitize our business more, if we have a growth opportunity in English or anything else, then you have to fund that. You can't just go knock on the CEO's door and say, I need more people. It's a very, very basic discipline. It's always kind of, tell me where there's a place where you can self-fund. And we always ask our CFOs, can you walk around with 500,000 or $1 million, or our HR people, can you walk around with 10 or 15 as a budget of how you can take action in the event that you need to scale up or broaden your business? We also then obviously move into the set of actions that are going to be taken. So if my objectives are these, and my environment and my business is changing this way, this is the way I choose to organize the work, the changes I've made, the changes I must make, and allocate my resource base. That would include external hiring, partnerships, and anything else that's required to do the work. So this is usually, because it's ingrained in the business, it's usually about a 15-minute to 30-minute discussion with a lot of emphasis on whether or not you've done enough to update the way you look at your business and structure and what your actions are going forward. By the way, in the CEO reviews, by about the second year, the CEO and the head HR person know an awful lot, right? So the time of head faking and winking and BS, that's kind of over, right? So it's a pretty candid discussion at this point. It's a fundamental responsibility of a leader, and we hold them to it as a starting base. We use the same organization chart to talk about succession planning. It's not the big area of emphasis for us, but it's very important, and let me tell you why. We are a growth company. We have not had a past of developing a lot of leaders, so we don't have a little young, robust pipeline. But we spend time on this mostly because succession planning is obviously a fundamental responsibility of a leader from a business continuity point of view. So the old exercise, if you get hit by a bus, who takes your job, right? But more importantly to us, it is a productivity play. Imagine that you have two people who can do your job and that you've worked to get them there, and you keep stretching them, you keep giving them more. The organizational performance that you're getting from your organization is tremendous. So we use that as a process by which we can evaluate whether or not we're putting people in the pipeline who are really good enough to someday take that top job. And if you're doing that, then you're getting tremendous performance. So this is why we use this. And this is the start of candor in our discussions. Because they'll always tell you, I have a successor for every job. And we say, well, that can't be true. It just can't. But everybody believes they have a successor, and you have to tell them, look, just so you know, if anything ever happens to you, I'm not putting him in the job. Now let's get to work on something that's a little more serious. This is the core of our review, and I'll just touch on this briefly and go into some detail. Every leader and every one of you always ranks. You walk into a room and you say, thank God for Margaret. Oh gosh, I hope Norman doesn't say anything because, oh my God. So you're always saying, here's my top people, here's my bottom people. First, in fact, you can get a peer of yours, but more importantly, a subordinate and say, let's rank the 11 people in my organization. You get the top 3 right, the same, and you get the bottom 3 the same. It's just people know it. So it's just important and fair to bring this forward in a way that you actually rank it. Employees don't see this sheet, by the way. It's just a very strong management tool. But you have to start with top to bottom, and you have to say, this is the way I think about my people. Now, what actions are derived out of that? But you just have to be candid. The other thing I like about ranking, it's a relative game. Everybody says I worked forever to have a bunch of all-stars. Okay, Alex Rodriguez is an all-star, but he's not. All-star capability once, but he's not. So it's relative in that every year you're looking at top to bottom and you're able to re-gauge and then figure out what development plans you need and what you have to go from there. The 9 blocking on the right is another way to plot your leaders around the 2 dimensions of leadership and performance, and we use it a lot to talk about leadership. So you typically have the people who are real strong performers, but just you're not getting leaders. You know that down the road, they may not get the performance if they're not becoming better leaders because it's not scalable. And so we use this one. We like to spread. Everybody will put everybody in the upper left side, and we have a discussion about how that can't be possible given the financial performance of that organization and everything else. So we start to have a discussion that's empowering around this, and I'll give you a little more detail on that. But this is really the core of it. It's a couple of hours we do this for direct reports to the CEO, and then we do this for high potentials, and then other communities that we pick on year to year, digital team, engineering team, and on like that. It's a very good tool. You know, HR doesn't have a lot of metrics. This is not one of those ROI, productivity returns, but it's one that requires the job of leadership, which is tell me who you got, how you rank them, how you plot them, and what you choose to do about it. Knowing that the leader is the most leveraged asset you have. Let's be serious about it and do it. Give you an example. A notion that I developed at Nielsen, and this is actually an actual page from ranking of our China leader, is that when you rank people, there's always going to be a point that as you talk about the person or the comments are there, you define an opportunity cost, right? And you can't read it here, but the 14th rated person on this team, underperforming next 6 months key. The 15th is supports X and X. The 16th, good ideas under delivers. 17 operates. At some point in the ranking of your people, you can probably determine where there's an opportunity cost that you're starting to carry. So just think about it. Don't think about it if I got the person's performance up or a better leader equal to the one above them, I'd be better off. No. If you have opportunity costs and you got 5 cases here, you don't have to get rid of 5. But you have to measure the opportunity cost that that leader carries by virtue of people that are under-delivering. And then just envision what happens if 2 or 3 of those, you hire replacements as good as the top 5. Your organization changes in a hurry. So this is a discipline we have. It's not intended to knock people out. It's intended, again, that as you do the conscious area of ranking, that you have some discussion that's actionable. And so every leader who starts to look at where he's carrying that cost for the company needs to confront it and deal with it. It's a concept we employ. Here's another one. We started with the top team at Univision. 42 of the top 100, we looked at the 100. 42 of the top 100 are new in their jobs in the last 18 or 20 months. Some outside hires, half of those have been promotions. And then we said, we'll go to high potentials next because I don't know if I have them. And if I don't have them, it's going to take me 3 to 5 years. Then we started going after the middle of the organization. And the best way to go after the middle of the organization around leadership performance was to, once you complete your ranking of the leader, is you rank the teams of the leaders. So if I have 5 direct reports and I rank Ben 1 and Bill 5, then I got to rank those 5 teams. And you start looking for dissonance. So in this case, leader C, if you can't see it, is ranked number 3 out of 10 in terms of the individual performance, but his team is ranked 9th by his boss. So that's an issue. That's an issue you have to get at in terms of the middle of the organization 2 ways. Is next year he can't be ranked 3 if he's got the 9th performing team. He can't, because he's not fulfilling his leadership responsibility. That's one. And he's got to get busy. So what you look for is you look a high-performing leader with a low-performing team, you always wonder whether or not they like being the smartest guy in the room. Right? Whether they like that and whether or not all the answers come to them or whether they're really working team performance as aggressively as they could. The bottom part of the list is pretty easy, right? You have some people who are ranked 9th and their team is ranked 8th. And there you just have a lot of work to do. But we do integrate in the ranking the team just so we can begin to work on the job of leadership, which is getting stronger teams. This 9-block assessment is a bit prescriptive here in terms of what those boxes mean, but I would just tell you a couple of tenets regarding that. Is first of all, what we've seen at Univision is as our company has performed better, we've had more people obviously move over to the left. But even as our company has performed better in the last 2 years, we've had fewer of those leaders move up on the leadership side, which means that gauge around evaluating leadership is getting a little more refined. And it gives us a little bit more action. This is another chart that gives you access to action. I would just suggest to you in the area of HR, if you're not working performance distribution real hard about your performance ratings and you're not getting differentiated distribution, if you get a 9-block like this that has everybody on the top upper left side, if you have a list with all successors, everything's wonderful, you have no access to action. None. We have people come in and they have everybody in the upper left side or up at the top, and we tell them, okay, next page. There's nothing we can do with this. It can't be true, but there's nothing we can do. So we encourage a healthy spread. We encourage a lot of candor regarding these charts, and this particular one is very, very useful to us. Back up one more a little bit. A couple of underlying tenets. People are really, really huge. They're incredible. Anybody that ever tells you that they cannot tell someone bad news about I'm going to skip you on a performance increase or I'm going to rate you a 2, which is below expectations, or you got to get better or you're not hitting your objective. Anybody that tells you that people can't handle it, it's just them telling you they can't handle it. The things that people do in their personal lives around deaths and births and divorces and all that makes them capable of doing an awful lot. They can certainly understand a performance evaluation or a ranking or anything. So we have an underlying tenet that we really, really want to be fair with our people. We don't need to tell them it's bad news and you're fired, but we really need to be fair with them. The number one problem in our company is that manager or supervisor who won't do that, that waits conveniently for a layoff to sweep off a 20-year employee who is never getting it. It's just not right. So underlying in all of our cultural build around our company, a performance culture, and the responsibility we hold our leaders to is they have to be candid and they have to be caring. And if they're not candid with their people, if they're not telling their people, can you earn $100,000 on the outside? Are you contemporary? Are you fresh? Can you take care of your family if we ever tap you on the shoulder? If you're not having those kind of standards for your people, you're not being fair. If you are, they'll respect you for it and you'll have a high-performing company. But we count a lot on our leaders. We really do, beyond the numbers. We believe that strong performance around how you organize the work, how you allocate resource, how you manage mix, how you work people and how you assess them, and how you take action, then begets all the financial performance. We've shown it. I've done it at several companies. This is another great case for us. It's terrific. Univision's on a real roll. We know that the discipline around these elements is the best way for us to perform, the best way for us to grow, and the best way to serve our communities, including our employees. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.